At 1:04 a.m., my daughter-in-law texted me, "Don't come to Christmas dinner, I'm handling everything." 3 months earlier, I had paid off their debts, her car, the daycare, her comfortable life. I texted back exactly 3 words, "Message received." The next morning, I canceled the first automatic bank transfer. At exactly 1:04 in the morning, my phone lit up the dark room. I squinted at the harsh screen, assuming it was an emergency. But it was just a text from Chloe, my daughter-in-law. "Please don't come to Christmas dinner. I'm taking care of everything. It's better for the vibe." I read the message twice. No explanation, no heads up. Just a cold, calculating directive. Only 3 months prior, I had drained my savings to pay off a massive mountain of credit card debt that Chloe and my son Ethan had quietly racked up. They'd been living way beyond their means, booking expensive vacations and buying designer clothes until the bank threatened to step in. I cleared the debt not out of sheer naivety, but because I wanted my grandson to grow up in a stable home. Back then, they called me their savior. Now that their accounts were back in the black, my presence at the holidays was suddenly ruining the aesthetic of their perfect little get-together. I didn't feel a surge of anger nor the urge to cry. Instead, a deep, absolute clarity washed over me. I stared at the screen, the shadows in the bedroom completely still. I wasn't going to ask questions. I wasn't going to call Ethan to complain. I'd done that for years, only to be met with his evasive excuses. He avoided conflict with his wife at all costs. I typed exactly 3 words in response, "Message received." Then I set the phone back on my nightstand and closed my eyes. I fell asleep instantly and didn't wake up until the first gray winter light peeked through the curtains. My mind was made up. No more endless discussions, no more suffering in silence. Chloe thought she was simply uninviting me from a dinner party. She didn't realize she had just freed me from all my familial obligations. I got up, pulled on my warm fleece robe, and headed to the kitchen to brew some coffee. It was going to be a busy day, but not with holiday prep for their party. I had things to take care of that couldn't wait. The first step was already crystal clear. I turned on the coffee maker and took a deep breath. It was a new day. It was time. The coffee steamed in my mug as I sat down at the kitchen table and flipped open my laptop. The house was still quiet. Ethan and Chloe were fast asleep upstairs in the second-floor unit I'd let them live in, rent-free for the past 5 years. They had remodeled it entirely to their tastes, fully funded by my wallet. I logged into my online banking. My eyes scanned the list of automatic monthly transfers. There it was, the auto pay for the lease on her second car, $450 every single month. Next was my contribution for my grandson's exclusive private daycare, $800. I had taken on these payments so Chloe could work part-time, a job she frequently skipped to get her hair done or grab lunch with her girlfriends. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for just a second. Then I clicked cancel. A window popped up, asking if I was sure I wanted to stop this recurring payment. I clicked confirm. A second later, the daycare subsidy was gone too. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like tightening the valve on a leaky faucet. If I wasn't considered family at the Christmas table, there was no reason for me to keep bankrolling their lifestyle. I shut the laptop and loaded my empty mug into the dishwasher. Then I walked into the living room. Sitting in the corner were 3 large shipping boxes full of expensive Christmas decorations Chloe had ordered just last week. Under my name, naturally. She had promised to Venmo me the money later. She never did. I grabbed a roll of packing tape from the drawer, carefully sealed the boxes back up, and printed out the return labels. I dropped them off at the UPS store later. Instantly, the living room felt tidier, cleaner. I didn't need artificial sparkle to feel at home. As I was sweeping the hallway, I heard footsteps on the stairs. Chloe was up. Her day was starting exactly as it always did, with the rock-solid belief that everything played out by her rules. She had no idea the foundation of her comfortable life had just started cracking. I cracked a small smile, grabbed my coat, and got ready for my next highly practical errand. The Home Depot on the edge of town was wonderfully empty that morning. I walked with purpose down the aisles, passing the festive string lights and toolboxes, heading straight for the home security section. I didn't need to ask an employee for help. I knew exactly what I was looking for. A standard deadbolt lock cylinder, solid quality, complete with 3 keys. I tossed it into my cart along with a new Phillips head screwdriver. When I pulled back into my driveway, Chloe's leased SUV was gone. She was probably at her Pilates class. That gave me the peace and quiet I needed. In our house, a heavy wooden door separated the shared foyer from my private first-floor living area. Up until now, that door had never been locked. Chloe treated my downstairs as an extension of her own kingdom. She stashed her overflow groceries in my large fridge, raided my pantry, and used my washer and dryer for her delicates, because her model supposedly ruined her clothes. That ended today. I unscrewed the plate on the edge of the door, slid the old cylinder out, and popped the new one in. It took less than 5 minutes. A soft click confirmed everything was perfectly aligned. I turned the new key. The deadbolt slid firmly into place. I pulled the key out and slipped it into my pocket. The boundary was now physical, undeniable. It was just a small piece of metal, but it completely shifted the power dynamic in this house. I put my tools away and dragged Chloe's laundry basket, which was still sitting in my bathroom, out into the foyer, placing it right in front of the newly locked door. Then, I systematically emptied all her groceries from my kitchen and stacked them neatly next to her laundry. My house was mine again. I sat down in my favorite armchair and cracked open a book. It was unusually quiet, devoid of the constant heavy footsteps and the unannounced pop-ins whenever Chloe needed something. I felt lighter. The sun broke through the winter clouds, casting warm shadows across the hardwood floor. I kept turning the pages, totally lost in the story. Late that afternoon, I heard the front door open. Chloe's quick, heavy footsteps echoed in the hall. She made a beeline straight for my door. The handle was shoved down frantically. Nothing happened. The door handle rattled aggressively. Then came the knocking, hesitant at first, then impatient. "Martha." "The door's stuck, open up. I need to get into the fridge." Chloe's voice was demanding, missing any hint of a please. I set my book aside, stood up slowly, and walked over. I unlocked the deadbolt and opened the door just a crack. Chloe was standing there in her expensive activewear, her car keys still dangling from her hand. Her eyes darted immediately to the laundry basket and the pile of groceries sitting at her feet. "What is all this?" she asked, her brow furrowing. "I changed the lock," I said calmly. "These things belong to you. Please take them upstairs." She stared at me as if I had suddenly started speaking a foreign language. "But my good wine is in your wine cooler. I need that for the Christmas party with my coworkers. And why on earth is it locked anyway?" I leaned casually against the door frame. "Because this is my private living space. Starting today, our households are separate. I'll gladly hand you your wine right now." I turned around, fetched the 3 bottles from the kitchen, and handed them out to her. She took them mechanically, completely blindsided. "Are you throwing a tantrum over that text last night?" "Martha, don't be ridiculous. You know how stressful all this holiday prep is." She was trying to brush it off as nothing. A classic move to put me on the emotional defensive. But I wasn't playing the game. "I'm not throwing a tantrum," I replied matter-of-factly. "I've accepted your decision." You take care of your party. I take care of my space. Have a good evening, Chloe. I shut the door before she could get another word out and turned the deadbolt. I heard her let out a loud, exasperated huff on the other side. She stomped up the stairs, loaded down with her basket and the wine bottles. There was no screaming match, no ugly fight, just a new reality she was going to have to adapt to. I walked back into my living room, poured myself a glass of water, and looked out the window. The sky was bruising a deep purple. Tomorrow was going to be even more interesting. It was Tuesday morning, 2 days before Christmas Eve. I was right in the middle of breakfast when my phone rang. It was Ethan. He hardly ever called this early. I let it ring, took a sip of my tea, and finished my toast. When he called for the third time, I finally picked up. "Mom, what's going on?" he asked, sounding frantic. "My bank just called. The lease payment for Chloe's car bounced. Did you forget to authorize the transfer?" He didn't sound angry, just bewildered. He was so used to me being the safety net. "I didn't forget anything, Ethan," I answered evenly. "I canceled the auto pay. Same goes for the daycare money." Dead silence hung on the other end of the line for a long, heavy moment. All I could hear was his shallow breathing. "But why? You can't just do that. We budget around that money. Chloe needs the car, and Leo's daycare costs a fortune." His voice was shaking a little. "Ethan, I bailed you out of your credit card debt. Then I got uninvited from the family Christmas dinner because I didn't fit the aesthetic. If I'm not part of the family, you guys need to finance your own lifestyle. It's simple logic." I spoke softly, without a trace of accusation. "Chloe didn't mean it like that. She's just under a lot of pressure because of the guests." As always, he was trying to smooth things over. "It doesn't matter how she meant it. What matters are the facts. The account is empty because it's your life. You have to pay for it yourselves now." "But how are we supposed to pay that by tomorrow?" he asked, panic setting in. "That's an organizational issue the two of you need to figure out as a married couple. I have to go now. My tea is getting cold." I hung up the phone. My heart was beating steadily. I hadn't lectured him. I hadn't yelled. I had simply handed him back the responsibility for his own life. Shortly after, I heard heavy footsteps thudding above me. Muffled but heated voices bled through the ceiling. Reality had finally reached the second floor. I rinsed my mug in the sink and started planning my own little holiday dinner. Wednesday brought heavy snow and a palpable sense of panic to the house. Chloe was constantly rushing up and down the stairs. Her big Christmas dinner was right around the corner, and without my logistical support, her schedule was imploding. Early in the afternoon, there was a frantic knock at my door. I opened it. Chloe stood there with little Leo whining and clinging to her leg. She looked stressed out, her hair thrown up in a messy clip. "Martha, can you watch Leo for 2 hours? I still have to pick up the turkey and get the groceries. Daycare closed early today." She spoke fast, acting as if my yes was a foregone conclusion. I looked down at my grandson, gave him a warm little smile, and then looked back up at Chloe. "No, I'm afraid that doesn't work for me today. I'm heading out in a few minutes." Her eyes went wide. "What do you mean you're heading out, going where it's snowing? I have to get these groceries or the whole dinner is ruined." Her voice was climbing in volume, her tone going shrill. "I have an appointment downtown," I said calmly, buttoning up my wool coat. "You'll have to take Leo with you." "That's impossible. The supermarket is a madhouse right now. He'll just scream the whole time. You always have time to watch him." She glared at me like I had just slapped her across the face. "The situation has changed. You said you were handling everything. That includes managing your own day-to-day schedule." I stepped past her into the foyer. "You're doing this on purpose," she hissed. I didn't turn around. "I am living my own life. Good luck with the shopping." I opened the front door and stepped out into the crisp, biting winter air. The snow crunched satisfyingly under my boots. I didn't really have an appointment. I was just going to take a walk through the snow-covered park, grab a coffee, and enjoy the peace and quiet. Behind me, I could hear Chloe angrily stuffing Leo into his snowsuit. She was finally feeling the full weight of the chores I had silently taken off her plate for years. The walk felt incredibly good. I didn't feel guilty in the slightest. All I felt was a deep, well-earned sense of peace. After my walk, I made a stop at the local butcher shop. The small storefront was packed with people picking up their holiday pre-orders. I took my place in line. When it was my turn, I gave my name. The butcher smiled, disappeared into the walk-in cooler for a moment, and came back out, laying a massive, perfectly tied prime rib roast on the counter. One large holiday roast. For Martha Miller. Already paid in full, right, he said warmly. I tucked the heavy package into my tote bag, wished him a Merry Christmas, and headed home. This roast was meant to be the centerpiece of Chloe's dinner party. She had ordered it under my name because I had a long-standing house account with this butcher, which I settled at the end of every month. I had decided to stop letting her put her groceries on my tab. I carried the beef into my kitchen and took my time prepping it for my own fantastic dinner. About 2 hours later, I heard Chloe's SUV screech into the driveway. Her car door slammed. Rapid, stomping footsteps rushed up the walk. A second later, someone practically tried to rip my door handle off, followed by aggressive pounding. "Martha, open up!" Chloe's voice was almost breaking. I opened the door. Her face was flushed partly from the freezing cold, partly from pure rage. "Where's the roast?" "The butcher said you picked it up. That's my main course for tomorrow." She waved her arms frantically. "It's my roast!" I replied, completely unfazed. "It was ordered under my name on my account. Since I wasn't invited to your dinner, I'm cooking it for myself." "Are you out of your mind? I have 8 people coming over. What am I supposed to serve them?" She was borderline screaming. "That sounds like a you problem, Chloe. You wanted total control. Now you have it." I shut the door. She threw a fit in the hallway for a few seconds, cursing under her breath before storming upstairs. The rich scent of roasting beef onions and rosemary slowly filled my kitchen. Everything was going exactly according to plan. Christmas Eve started peacefully. A small fire crackled in my living room fireplace, and I had set the dining table just for myself. Real silver linen napkins and a beautiful glass of Cabernet. Upstairs, however, it was absolute chaos. Starting in the early afternoon, loud thuds echoed through the ceiling. Chairs were being dragged across the floor, Leo was crying on and off, and I could hear Ethan and Chloe having a screaming match in their hallway. Around 6 p.m., Chloe's guests arrived, the co-workers she was so desperate to impress. I heard the muffled, polite greetings in the stairwell. Then it went quiet for a bit. The calm before the storm. I carved myself a thick slice of the tender prime rib and savored every bite. It was spectacular. No tension at the table, no passive-aggressive remarks, no fake smiles. About an hour later, the issues upstairs started getting louder. Footsteps hurried back and forth in a panic. Apparently, whatever panic-bought replacement she had grabbed at the supermarket hadn't quite hit the mark. I turned on some soft, classical music. It wasn't my party, and they weren't my guests. For years, I had been the shock absorber in this family. When money was tight, I paid. When time was short, I babysat. When dinner burned, I improvised. Now, they were sitting up there with no safety net, fully exposed to the reality of their own poor planning. No one knocked on my door to beg for help. Maybe out of pride, or maybe because they finally realized the door was going to stay locked. I finished my wine, leaned back, and watched the flames. I didn't feel lonely. Quite the opposite. For the first time since my husband passed away, I felt like the master of my own home again. Around 10 o'clock at night, the first guests started saying their goodbyes in the stairwell. The chatter sounded stiff and rushed. It seemed the perfect dinner party had ended early. I cleared my plate, turned off the lights, and went to bed. Sleep came quickly, deep and dreamless. The hardest part of the work was done. On Christmas Day, an oppressive silence hung over the house. Nobody went outside. Not even the TV was on upstairs. Around noon, there was a soft knock at my door. It wasn't Chloe's usual demanding pounding, but a hesitant, unsure rap. I opened it. Ethan was standing in the hallway. He looked exhausted with dark circles under his eyes, his shoulders slumped. "Can I come in for a minute?" he asked quietly. I stepped aside and motioned toward the armchair in the living room. I didn't offer him coffee. He sat down and stared at his hands for a long time. "Dinner last night was a total disaster," he finally started. "Chloe was completely overwhelmed. The backup food burned, and we got into a huge fight in front of everyone. She blamed the whole thing on me." He looked up. "Mom, a lot of things became really clear to me yesterday. The bounced car lease, the empty checking account. We've been living way beyond our means. And you were just quietly absorbing the impact this whole time." "Yes," I said simply. "I was. Until that text." He gave a heavy nod. "I'm sorry. I just let Chloe do whatever she wanted because I didn't want the headache of arguing with her. I thought you liked doing those things for us. I love helping. But I absolutely refuse to be treated like an ATM and then tossed aside like unwanted help." My tone wasn't angry, just firm. "Can we start over?" he pleaded. "Chloe's upstairs crying. She has no idea how we're going to pay rent and the car payment next month." I looked him dead in the eye. "You live rent-free in my house. The car will have to go back to the dealership. You two are going to have to learn how to survive on your actual salaries. I won't be paying any more of your bills." He swallowed hard, but he didn't argue. He understood that the old rules no longer applied. "I'm going to go upstairs and talk to her right now," he said softly, standing up. "We need to make some major changes." "You do," I agreed. I walked him to the door. He seemed older as he stepped out into the hall. The lifeline was gone. There was nothing left but reality. I locked the door behind him. 2 weeks had passed. January brought a bitter chill, but the days were bright and sunny. The house had changed. Chloe's leased SUV was no longer parked in the driveway. They'd had to return it. And now they were taking turns carpooling to work in Ethan's old compact car. The way we interacted was polite but distant. When we bumped into each other in the stairwell, we'd say hello. But there were no more demands. No more, "Hey, can you just," or "We really need." My connecting door stayed firmly locked. I had checked my bank statements that morning. The money I'd saved over the last 2 weeks was already piling up. I sat at the kitchen table sipping my morning coffee. On my laptop, I had a booking site open for train tickets. I had decided to book a week-long stay at a little boutique hotel on the coast of Maine. Just me, the salty ocean air, and a stack of good books. No obligations, no hidden costs. Upstairs, I heard the front door click shut. Ethan was taking Leo to the public preschool in the next town over the one they now had to pay for themselves. It was less convenient, but it worked. They were learning to stand on their own 2 feet. I hadn't destroyed my relationship with my son. I had simply forced it onto a healthy adult foundation. I shut my laptop, picked up my mug, and walked over to the window. The frost was sparkling on the branches of the apple tree out back. I didn't hold any grudges anymore. The bitter disappointment of that Christmas night had melted away into a profound sense of peace. I hadn't screamed, I hadn't called any lawyers, and I hadn't started a dramatic family feud. I had simply stopped setting myself on fire to keep them warm. I turned around, grabbed my purse, and slipped into my coat. There was a small suitcase up in the attic I needed to get down to pack for my trip. The house was quiet, safe, and entirely mine. I locked my apartment door and slipped the key into my pocket. My train was leaving first thing tomorrow morning, and I was more than ready. Sometimes peace doesn't start with a fight. It starts with a door you quietly lock. Martha didn't abandon her family. She simply stopped paying for the foundation of a life where there was no longer any room for her.